If you can't handle me sleeping with your sister, then leave. She's a real woman, not a boring bus driver. My husband sneered. They used my retirement savings for their launch party. He put me on stage to mock me, unaware I had a remote to expose them to the world. Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, I'd love to know which city you're joining us from. Please feel free to share in the comments. Now, let me take you into this story. You know what's funny about loyalty? It's like tending a garden for someone else. You water it every day, you pull the weeds, you protect it from the frost. You pour your back and your heart into it, thinking you're building this beautiful thing together. And then you find out they've been planting poison ivy on the other side of the fence, just waiting for the day they can take the whole garden and lock you out, leaving you with nothing but the dirt under your nails. My name is Lorraine. But everyone who knows me, or thought they knew me, just calls me Lori. And for 20 years, I was the most loyal, dedicated gardener you'd ever meet. Turns out, I was just the unpaid help. My life, for as long as I can remember, has been defined by the 4:30 a.m. alarm. That buzzing sound in the pitch black, that was my soundtrack. I'd slide my feet out of the warm bed and onto the cold hardwood floor, always careful, always trying not to wake my husband, Russell. Russ needed his sleep. He was always on the verge of something big. He had ideas to dream about. So I'd be the one padding down the hall in the dark, the only light coming from the small digital clock on the microwave. Just me and the quiet hum of the coffee maker. I'd make 2 cups. One for me, in my world's best bus driver mug the kids gave me. One for Russ, in his future CEO mug he'd bought for himself. I'd pack my lunch, a turkey sandwich on wheat, an apple, a small bag of pretzels. I'd pack one for Russ, too, usually something more elaborate I'd prepped the night before. I'd set his coffee and his lunch on the counter for whenever he decided to wake up, which was usually around 11. By 5:15 a.m., I was out the door. I'd walk the 4 blocks to the bus depot in the pre-dawn chill, the air smelling like damp pavement and diesel. For 15 years, I've been a school bus driver. You get a lot of time to think, driving a bus. You see the seasons change. You see the city wake up. You get to know the kids. You're the first hello they get in the morning and the last goodbye before they get home. I watched little Sammy Peterson go from a terrified kindergartner who cried for his mom on the first day, to a 5th grader who'd sit up front and tell me all about the video game he was designing. It's a good, honest job. It's steady. It has a pension. It paid our mortgage. It paid for our groceries. It paid for Russell's string of genius business ideas that always seemed to fizzle out, always leaving us with a little more credit card debt. It paid for my younger sister, Brenda's, constant emergencies, her rent being late, her car payment being due, her needing a new outfit for some important job interview. I was the rock. The steady, boring, predictable rock everyone else built their shaky lives on. And for the longest time, I told myself I was fine with that. That's what family is, right? You support each other. You hold things together. I'd get home around 4 p.m. The house would be exactly as I left it, only Russ would be on the sofa, laptop open on his chest, surrounded by crumpled up pieces of paper. He'd be stressed. "Hey, babe," I'd say, dropping my keys in the ceramic bowl by the door. "Hey," he'd grunt, not looking up from his screen. Tough day. These investors are playing hardball. They just don't see the vision. It was always investors or meetings or conference calls. For the last 10 years, it had been a different vision every 6 months. There was the gourmet salsa company. The app for trading fantasy stocks. The real estate seminar he was going to host. Each one was going to be the big one. Each one just seemed to cost more in startup funds that came directly from my paycheck. And then there was Brenda. My baby sister. She was Brenda. All flash and sparkle, like a firecracker, and just as empty afterward. She'd stop by, always around dinner time, and drape herself over a kitchen chair, complaining about her dead-end receptionist job and her terrible boss. "Lori, you're so lucky," she'd sigh, twirling her salon blonde hair. "You and Russ have this great house. You have a career. You're stable. A career." She called driving a bus a career when she was about to ask for money. But I knew what they both really thought of it. I'd heard the whispers when they thought I was out of earshot. Just the bus driver. She's happy in her little world. Boring, dependable, simple Lori. I let them think it. I let them all think I was simple. Honestly, it was just easier that way. It kept the peace. It let me keep my secret. You see, there's a part of my life I never, ever talked about. Not to Russ. Not to Brenda. Not to a single soul in my current life. Before I was a bus driver, before I was Russell's long-suffering wife, I was Specialist Lorraine Morgan. United States Army, Intelligence and Security Command. It's hard to picture, I know. Me, in my faded blue school district polo, versus a 22-year-old woman in fatigues, sitting in a windowless room somewhere in a desert, staring at a bank of glowing green screens. My job wasn't kicking down doors. My job was to find the pattern in the noise. To listen to thousands of hours of static and satellite chatter, just to find the one single voice, the one word that mattered. To look at a mountain of data, financial transactions, shipping manifests, drone footage, and find the one tiny piece that didn't fit. It was a high-stress, high-stakes, soul-crushing job. And I was good at it. I was very good. When I got out, the civilian world felt overwhelmingly quiet. Too quiet. I met Russ at a friend's barbecue. He was loud and funny and full of life and big, crazy dreams. He was everything I wasn't. I fell for it. Hard. I wanted that normal life. I wanted a husband, a house, a simple job. So I became a bus driver. The routine, the steady hum of the engine, the simple, tangible responsibility of getting kids from point A to point B, it was a kind of meditation. It was my escape from the person I used to be. But that part of my brain, the part that looks for patterns, the part that analyzes threats, it never really turned off. And back in 2013, it saw a new pattern. It was a little piece of code, a digital currency everyone on the news was laughing at. Bitcoin. My training kicked in. I read the white papers. I saw the structure. I saw the potential. This wasn't a gamble, it was a long-term strategic investment in a new kind of system. So, while Russ was trying to launch his gourmet-to-go salsa delivery service, I was taking a small piece of my salary, my stupid bus driver money, every single payday, and I was buying crypto. Bitcoin. Then a little Ethereum. Then a few others I'd researched. I did it just like I used to run an operation, with discipline, patience, and absolute secrecy. While Russ was sleeping in until noon, I was up at 4:30 a.m., checking the global markets before heading to the depot. While he and Brenda were mocking my boring life, that life was funding a silent, digital revolution in my name. By this year, my simple life had a very complicated secret. A secure, encrypted, cold storage ledger that read $4.2 million. I didn't tell a soul. What was I going to say? Oh, by the way, honey, while you were losing another $5,000 on that executive coffee mug idea, I've become a multi-millionaire driving kids to and from elementary school? I knew what that would do to his fragile pride. I knew he'd want to invest it. He'd want to manage it for me. I knew it would be gone in 6 months. So I kept my secret. I drove my bus. I paid the mortgage. I listened to their plans. And I let them think I was simple. That was my biggest mistake. Not having the money, but letting them believe I was stupid. The change, when it came, was slow at first. So slow, I almost convinced myself I was just being paranoid. That I was just tired and projecting. It started with the whispers. I'd come home from my afternoon route, and Russ and Brenda would be huddled at the kitchen table, laptops open, talking in low, excited voices. The second my keys hit the ceramic bowl, they'd go silent. "What's up?" I'd ask, pulling my lunchbox from my bag. "Oh, nothing," Brenda would say, a little too brightly, her smile a little too wide. "Just talking about the new project. It's huge, Lori. Russ is just a genius. This is the one, I can feel it." Russ would just smile, that smug little smile he got when he was proud of himself. "It's big, babe. Really big. You won't have to drive that bus much longer. We're going to be set." "That's great, honey," I'd say, forcing a smile. Then came the little gifts. Russ, who hadn't bought me flowers in 5 years, suddenly started being thoughtful. But the thoughtfulness was off. He'd bring home my favorite ice cream, only it was rum raisin, which I've always hated. Brenda loved rum raisin. He'd make dinner, a rare event, but it would be some complicated pasta dish with shrimp and pesto, which Brenda had posted on her Instagram feed just last week. I chalked it up to them being excited about the new project. I was the financial rock, so of course they were being nice to me. They were buttering me up for something. But the real red flag, the one that made that little analyst in the back of my head sit up straight, was the perfume. Brenda came over for our weekly Sunday dinner. She was wearing a new dress, a silk one, a little too tight, a little too expensive for her receptionist's salary. And she was wearing a new perfume. It was heavy, musky. Sandalwood and vanilla. It was the kind of perfume that enters a room before the person does. "Wow, new perfume, Bren?" I asked, stirring the spaghetti sauce. "Oh, this," she said, flipping her hair back. "It's called Obsession. I got it at an outlet. Practically a steal. You like it?" "It's strong," I said. I nodded, but my mind was clicking. Outlet. Steal. I had been at Macy's with a friend last month. I'd smelled that exact perfume. It was $90 a bottle. Brenda was the person who borrowed $20 for gas and forgot to pay it back. She wasn't buying $90 perfume. 3 days later, I was doing laundry. The chore I hated most. I picked up Russ's work shirt from the day before, one of his investor meeting shirts. I was checking the pockets, and I brought it to my face to see if it needed pre-treating. And there it was. Faint, but unmistakable. Sandalwood and vanilla. My blood went cold. I felt it, a literal drop in my body temperature. I stood there in the laundry room, the smell of bleach and detergent mixing with the smell of his betrayal. But I'm a professional. I don't act on one piece of intel. I needed confirmation. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe Brenda had just hugged him? A friendly, sister-in-law hug? But the smell was on the collar of his shirt, right where a woman's head would rest. And it was strong. The denial was powerful. I wanted to be wrong. I really wanted to be just a paranoid, middle-aged woman who was overthinking things. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Russ, listening to the sound of his steady, even breathing. The breathing of a man with no conscience. That little voice in my head, the specialist, the one I'd suppressed for 15 years, was wide awake. And she was telling me, "They think you're asleep. It's time to wake up." The next step was to check the financials. It was the oldest move in the book. It never fails. Follow the money. I had always handled the household accounts, paid all the bills. Russ had a supplementary credit card from our joint account for emergencies and business expenses. He was supposed to give me the receipts. He hadn't in months, said it was all too complicated for me to understand. I waited. The next Saturday, he said he had an all-day strategy session at a co-working space downtown. Brenda, coincidentally, was going to a yoga retreat for the day. The second his car pulled out of the driveway, I was at the dining room table with my laptop. I logged into the credit card portal. My hands were shaking, just a little. Please, God, let it be nothing. Let it be a new printer. Let it be lunch with a client. Let it be anything but what I'm thinking. The statement opened. I scrolled past the gas charges, the utility bills. And then, I saw it. A charge from 2 weeks ago. $350 Le Chateau Grand. My breath hitched. Le Chateau Grand. A fancy, boutique hotel downtown. The kind of place with velvet ropes and rooftop bars. A conference. He told me he was at a conference all day. I kept scrolling. Another charge on the same day. Bijou jewelry, for $150. And then, the one that made me feel physically sick. Le Chateau Grand room service, $128.50. And right below it, Le Chateau Grand Fleur Restaurant, $220. The date. My eyes snapped to the date. October 14th. Our 10th wedding anniversary. I remembered that day perfectly. I had taken a half day off. I'd made a special dinner, his favorite, roast beef with Yorkshire pudding. It took me hours. He called me at 6 p.m., his voice all frantic and stressed. Babe, I'm so sorry. This investor meeting, it's running late. I can't get away. These guys are they're brutal. I promise I'll make it up to you. Don't wait up. I remembered eating that roast beef alone at the dining room table, watching the candles I'd lit burn down. I remembered feeling sad, but understanding. He was working for their future, right? I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred and refocused. I was wrong. He wasn't working. He was celebrating. My training kicked in. Don't feel. Analyze. Confirm. I picked up the phone. My voice was surprisingly steady when I dialed the hotel. Good morning, Le Chateau Grand, this is Sylvie speaking. Hi, I said, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. This is Mr. Russell Morgan's assistant. I'm just trying to finalize his expense report for a trip 2 weeks ago, and I seem to have misplaced a receipt. I just need to confirm the charge for his rewards points. The date was October 14th. One moment, please. Morgan. Yes. I have it right here. A one-night stay, checking in on the 14th. The signature romance package. My stomach dropped. The what? The signature romance package, ma'am, the voice said, cheerful, oblivious. It includes the champagne, the roses, and the dinner at Fleur. Was that all? Yes, could you confirm the reservation name? Just for my records? There was a pause. The clacking of a keyboard. Yes. The reservation was for 2 guests. It looks like it was for a Mr. and Mrs. Morgan. The world tilted. The phone felt heavy, slippery in my hand. Mrs. Morgan? I whispered. Yes, ma'am, the voice said. Is there anything else I can help you with today? No, I said, my voice barely audible. No. That's all. Thank you. I hung up the phone. Mrs. Morgan. My maiden name. The name I shared with my sister. The name Brenda still used on all her social media. The name she had apparently been using in a hotel with my husband. I sat there at my dining room table, the one I'd picked out at a yard sale, the one I'd spent a whole summer stripping and refinishing myself. And I finally understood. It wasn't just a hug. It wasn't just a fling. This was a plan. This was a separate, calculated life. The perfume. The hotel. The jewelry. All of it, paid for with my money. My bus driving money. The sadness I expected didn't come. The hot tears of rage I thought I would cry never showed up. Instead, a cold, hard clarity settled over me. It was a feeling I hadn't had in 15 years. It was the feeling I used to get just before a major operation. The gardener was done. The analyst was back. I didn't say anything for 2 days. I let the information settle. I went to work. I drove my bus. I smiled at the kids. I waved to the crossing guard. I came home. I made dinner. I was a perfect, hollow shell of a wife. Russ and Brenda were oblivious. They were giggly, excited about their project, which I now knew was just a front for their affair. The house felt thick with their lies, suffocating. On the third night, I waited. Russ came home late, around 9 p.m. He smelled of beer and, faintly, of sandalwood and vanilla. "Hey, babe," he said, throwing his keys in the ceramic bowl. The clink sounded unnaturally loud in the quiet kitchen. "Long day. These investors are just, you wouldn't believe it." "I'm sure," I said. My voice was flat. I was sitting at the dining room table, right where I'd been when I made the call. I had the hotel bill. I'd printed it out. I had to hear him say it. He went to the fridge, grabbed a beer. "You're quiet tonight. Everything okay on the route? No kids throw up?" "It was fine," I said. I pushed the single sheet of paper across the polished wood of the table. "You look tired, Russ. Was it worth it?" "Was what worth it?" he said, his back to me. He opened the beer. "The Grand Hotel," I said. "The signature romance package. On our anniversary." He froze. The PSSSST of the beer opening was the only sound. He turned around, very, very slowly. His face went through 5 distinct emotions in 3 seconds. Confusion. Recognition. Panic. Then, anger. And finally, something ugly. Something I'd never seen before, but I recognized instantly: contempt. He looked at the bill. He looked at me. And he sneered. "So what?" he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "You figured it out. Big deal. Took you long enough." The casual cruelty of it, the indifference, hit me harder than a physical blow. "Took me." "Russ, that was our anniversary." With my sister?" He actually laughed. It was a short, barking sound, completely without humor. "Yeah, your sister. And you know what, Lori? I'm glad you know. I'm sick of hiding. I'm sick of pretending." "Pretending?" My voice was shaking now, not with sadness, but with a cold fury I hadn't felt in years. "Yeah, pretending," he yelled, finally dropping the mask, his face turning red. "Pretending to be married to a boring woman in a stupid uniform. Pretending to be interested in your stories about traffic and annoying kids. You think this is a life? This isn't a life, Lori. It's a prison. And I'm done." I just stared at him. The man I had loved. The man I had supported, sacrificed for. Brenda. "Brenda gets it," he spat, his face twisted. "She's alive. She's ambitious. She's beautiful. She's a real woman. Not someone who's content to be stuck behind the wheel of some stupid bus smelling like disinfectant all day." He took a step toward me, his eyes blazing, jabbing his finger at me. "So, yeah. I'm sleeping with your sister. And you know what? If you can't handle it, then leave. Because we're done here. We've been done for a long time. He stood there, panting, chest heaving. He was waiting for me to break. He was waiting for the tears, the screaming, the begging. He was expecting the gardener. He wasn't prepared for the analyst. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just looked at him, my expression completely blank. The cold, hard clarity was back, sharp as a razor. Okay, I said. Just one word. Okay. The look on his face, it was almost funny. He was baffled. This wasn't in his script. Okay? That's all you've got? Okay? Yes, I said. I stood up from the table. I picked up my keys from the ceramic bowl by the door. Thank you for being so honest, Russ. It's clarifying. I walked to the door. Where are you going? He yelled after me, his voice suddenly laced with panic. This was not the plan. Lori! Get back here. You can't just walk out. I opened the front door, the door to the house I paid for. Watch me, I said. I walked out. I got in my car. I drove to a cheap motel off the highway, the kind with a flickering vacancy sign. And I didn't look back. The war had begun. I sat on the stiff, polyester comforter of the motel bed. The room smelled like stale smoke and industrial cleaner. It was awful. And I felt calm. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. My mind was working. Fast. The first 10 years of my adult life, I was trained to handle betrayal. On a global scale, sure, but the principles were the same. 1. Assess the threat. 2. Gather intel. 3. Formulate a response. The threat was clear, Russ and Brenda. They weren't just cheating. They were conspiring. That big project wasn't a dream, it was a scam. And I was the target. My 401k, my savings, the equity in my house. They were planning to take it all. I needed intel. I couldn't do this alone. I needed someone outside the wire. I pulled my old go bag from the trunk of my car. At the bottom, under a first aid kit and a wad of cash, was my old burner phone, the kind from before smartphones. I kept it charged for emergencies. I opened the back and took out a hidden compartment in my wallet, pulling out a faded SIM card. I swapped it in, and the phone booted up with a simple green screen. One number in the contact list. Sarge. I took a deep breath and dialed. It rang 3 times, then a click. This is Frank, a gravelly voice answered. Sarge? I said. It's Specialist Morgan. Lorraine. There was a heavy pause on the other end. Lori? Well, I'll be damned. It's been, 10 years? Everything okay? You're using the old comms channel. This isn't a social call. I have a domestic situation, Frank, I said, my voice all business. A hostile internal threat. I need intel, and I need it clean. Frank, Sarge, was my former CO. He was a signals intelligence genius who now ran a very private, very expensive cybersecurity firm in Chicago. He was the best I'd ever known. And he owed me one. I'd taken the fall for a data entry error back in '08, a nothing mistake that would have cost him his promotion. I sat through a 2-day inquiry and never said his name. He knew. Domestic, he grunted. Lori, you call me on a secure line for a cheating husband? I wish it were that simple, Sarge, I said. This involves conspiracy, financial fraud, and they're planning to steal a significant amount of money. My money. All of it. Another pause. Longer this time. Okay, he said, his tone shifting. All business. He was in. What do you need? They're sloppy, I said. They're arrogant. They think I'm a simpleton. They're using our home Wi-Fi for everything. They're probably using the same password for all their accounts. I need access to their cloud drives, their text logs, their email. I need to know what the big project really is, and how far along they are. And you? Frank asked. What's your current status? I've evacuated to a secure location, I said, looking around the grimy motel room. I'm compromised but operational. Frank actually chuckled, a sound like rocks grinding together in a bag. Atta girl. Still got the lingo. Okay, specialist. Send me the preliminary intel. Their names, numbers, email addresses, social media. Whatever you got. I'm on it. Thank you, Frank. Don't thank me yet, he said, his voice hard. Just remember the rules. No emotion. This is an operation. You're gathering intel for a counteroffensive. You got it? Copy that, Sarge, I said, and hung up. I spent the next 2 days in that motel room. I called the bus depot and took a family emergency leave. I went to a big box store and bought a new, high-powered laptop, a fresh burner smartphone, and a case of bottled water. I set up my command center on the flimsy particle board desk. On the 3rd day, my new burner phone buzzed. A text from Frank. It was just a secure link and 2 words. Merry Christmas. I clicked it. And my world, the one I thought I knew, shattered into a million more pieces. It was all there. Frank wasn't just good, he was a ghost. He had gained access to everything. A shared cloud drive. Their text chains going back 6 months. Their hidden social media accounts. It was so much worse than I could have imagined. They had a secret Instagram account, Russ_Ann_Bren_Legacy. It was private, with only a few dozen followers, all people I didn't know. It was filled with pictures of them. In my house, on my sofa. In my bed, tangled in the sheets I had bought at Bed Bath & Beyond. Wearing the expensive watch I had saved for a year to buy Russ for his 40th birthday. Posing with my car, the one I paid for. The captions were a stream of jokes, all at my expense. Enjoying the view from the bus driver's patio. Hashtag working hard. Another long day of meetings funded by the Queen of the Road. Hashtag thanks Lori. Hashtag so simple. Manifesting our new life. The old one can keep her stupid bus. I felt a hot, metallic taste in my mouth. But I didn't stop reading. This wasn't emotion. This was intel. Then I found the business plan. The big project, Legacy Living, was a complete and total sham. It was a fake lifestyle brand. The plan was to host a massive, high-profile launch party. They were going to use seed investors, me, to fund the party. Then, they were going to collect money from other local investors at the party, promising huge returns on their revolutionary lifestyle concept. And then? A folder labeled Exit Strategy. One-way tickets to Costa Rica. Booked for the day after the party. I kept digging. And then I found the real Trojan horse. The betrayal within the betrayal. Frank had found a separate email account, one only Russ used. A secret from Brenda. In it, he was communicating with an offshore bank in the Cayman Islands. He had already set up an account. Under his name. Only his name. The texts to Brenda were all our future, baby, and we'll be rich together, and 50-50 all the way. The emails to the bank were about transferring all initial funds and ensuring sole signatory status. My stomach turned. I lurched off the chair, ran to the bathroom, and was violently sick in the cheap motel toilet. He wasn't just using me. He was planning to use Brenda, too. He was going to take her to Costa Rica, or at least promise to, and then, once all the money was secure in his secret account, he was going to disappear. He was going to leave her stranded there. He was going to leave us both with nothing. I sat back on the cold tile floor, wiping my mouth. The fury was so cold and so pure, it was almost peaceful. This was no longer a cheating husband. This was no longer a family drama. This was a predator. And I, Specialist Lorraine Morgan, was going to hunt him. Frank called my burner. He never texted twice. You see it? I see it, I said, my voice steady, icy. He's planning to burn her, too. Kid's a real piece of work, Frank grunted. So, what's the play, Lori? You want me to just lock him out? Expose him? I can have his accounts frozen and a tip into the IRS in 20 minutes. I thought for a minute. No. That was too easy. That was just defense. That was just stopping him. It wasn't justice. No, Sarge, I said. They want a launch party? We're going to give them one. We're going to give them the biggest launch of their lives. I'm not just going to stop them. I'm going to dismantle them. Publicly. In front of everyone. Now you're talkin', Frank said. Operation Trojan Horse. What's the insertion point? Me, I said. I'm going to be the insertion. I went home. It was, without a doubt, the hardest thing I have ever done. Harder than basic training. Harder than any intel op, harder than hearing the news about my parents. I packed my bag from the motel, drove back to my house, and used my key to walk in the front door. Russ was on the sofa, right where I'd left him 3 days prior, surrounded by pizza boxes. He looked surprised, and then, disgustingly, smug. He thought I'd come crawling back. So, he said, turning off the TV. You done with your little tantrum? Figured out you can't make it without me? I put on the best performance of my life. I let my shoulders slump. I let my eyes well up with tears. Russ, I whispered, my voice breaking. I can't. I can't lose my family. Not you. Not Brenda. I was just so shocked. I didn't know how to react. If this is what it takes, if I have to share you, I'm willing to try and understand. His face softened. He saw weakness. He saw his doormat. He saw his 401k. Oh, honey, he said, walking over, putting his arms around me. He smelled like stale beer. I had to fight every muscle in my body not to knee him in the groin. I knew you'd see it my way. It's a modern arrangement, babe. It doesn't mean I don't care about you. You're my rock. He was pathetic. And he thought I was buying it. For the next week, I played the part of the broken, compliant wife. I was quiet. I was sad. But I was there. I made dinner. I went to work. I drove my bus. I was the perfect picture of a woman who had given up. And then, just as I predicted, they made their move. It was a Sunday. Brenda came over, all fake smiles and awkward, tentative hugs. Lori. I'm so glad you're not, mad. We're still family. That's the most important thing, right? We're still family, I repeated, my voice hollow. Then Russ cleared his throat, taking on his CEO voice. Babe, since we're all on the same page now, we need to talk about the project. Legacy Living. He and Brenda launched into their practice pitch. The launch party. The high-profile guests. The buzz they were building. It's our one big shot, Lori, Brenda said, her eyes wide and earnest, a performance that almost matched my own. Russ is a genius, but we're $50,000 short. Just to secure the grand ballroom at the Oakhurst Hotel and pay the deposits for the caterers. It's the last hurdle. $50,000? I said, widening my eyes, pretending to be shocked. Russ, that's my entire 401k. That's my retirement. It's an investment, Lori. Russ said, grabbing my hand. His was clammy. An investment in us. In our future. So you can finally quit that stupid bus job and we can all be successful together. All three of us. We can all be successful together. The lie was so thick, I could barely breathe. I pretended to be conflicted. I paced the kitchen. I wrung my hands. I looked at Russ. I looked at Brenda. They were watching me, like two wolves watching a lamb, barely concealing their hunger. I don't know, I said, shaking my head. It's everything I have. Please, Lori, Brenda whispered, grabbing my other hand. Don't you want this for us? Don't you want to be part of it? We can't do it without you. I looked at them, my two betrayers. My husband. My sister. Okay, I said, letting out a long, defeated sigh. I'll do it. I'll liquidate the 401k. I'll transfer the money. But I have one condition. Russ and Brenda visibly relaxed, sharing a quick, triumphant glance. Anything, babe. Name it, Russ said, magnanimous in his victory. If I'm investing, if I'm risking my entire retirement, I said, looking him in the eye. I want to be acknowledged. At the party. I want to stand on that stage with you. I want you to tell everyone that I'm a partner. That I made this possible. Russ and Brenda looked at each other. I could see the wheels turning. A public acknowledgement would make me, the victim, look complicit. It would tie my name to their scam. It was perfect for them. Honey, Russ said, beaming, pulling me into a hug that made my skin crawl. That's the least we can do. You're not just a partner, Lori. You're the guest of honor. The next 3 weeks were a blur of fake enthusiasm. I sat through endless, agonizing meetings about floral arrangements and curated playlists. I nodded along as Brenda debated between champagne gold and rose gold tablecloths, all while knowing my retirement money was paying for it. Russ was ecstatic. The $50,000 hit his legacy living account, and he was suddenly a big-shot CEO. He was on the phone constantly, booking speakers, inviting local influencers. He and Brenda were never home, always at the venue or meeting with vendors or schmoozing investors. Which was perfect. It gave me and Frank all the time we needed. 2 days before the event, I told Russ I wanted to see the venue set up. I'm just so nervous, honey, I said, putting a tremble in my voice. It's so much money. I want to see where it's all going. Of course, babe, he said, patting my hand. You deserve to. Brenda and I will be at the printers all afternoon, but you go ahead. The manager, Cynthia, is expecting you. Tell her you're with me. Frank was waiting in the parking lot of the Oakhurst Hotel. He was wearing a navy blue polo shirt with a fake Oakhurst IT logo he'd printed himself. He was carrying a standard technician's toolbox. Specialist, he grunted, giving me a nod. Sarge, I said. Showtime. We walked in. The grand ballroom was massive, all crystal chandeliers and heavy velvet curtains. A few hotel staff were setting up tables, but it was mostly empty. I found the event manager, a flustered woman named Cynthia, who was yelling at a vendor about ice sculptures. Hi, Cynthia? I'm Lorraine Morgan, Mr. Morgan's wife. We're the Legacy Living event? Oh, yes, Mrs. Morgan. A pleasure, she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. I proceeded to spend the next 30 minutes driving Cynthia completely insane. Are you sure these tablecloths are rose gold? They look more salmon to me. Brenda was very specific about rose gold. The lighting over table 12 seems a little dim. My mother-in-law will be there, she needs to see her food. Can we check the wattage on that bulb? What about the gluten-free options? Are they prepared in a separate kitchen? Because my sister Brenda has a very sensitive, well, everything. I need to see the kitchen protocols. While I had Cynthia completely occupied, guiding her on a painstaking tour of the kitchen's celiac protocols, Frank slipped into the AV booth at the back of the ballroom. He was in, toolbox open, in under 30 seconds. He plugged his laptop into their main server, uploaded his package, and then seamlessly blended back out, nodding to a real hotel worker as he left. He was back in the car, engine running, by the time I finally approved the salmon-colored tablecloths. I got in the passenger seat, my heart hammering against my ribs. Is it done? Package is live, Frank said. It's nested inside their official presentation file. It's set to autoplay after their main video. They won't see it until it's too late. But, Lori. I changed my mind. It's not automated. What do you mean? I asked, my blood running cold. He handed me a small, black device. It looked like a car key fob, with one simple, unmarked button. It's a remote trigger. It's tied to my server. The video is queued up, but it won't play until you press this button. I can't do it. It has to be you. You have to be in the room, and you have to give the final go order. I stared at the button. All that power, all that destruction, in the palm of my hand. They're going to put you on stage, Lori, Frank said, his voice serious. They're going to use you as a prop. They're going to humiliate you one last time. You have to be ready. I closed my hand around the fob. It was solid and cool. I'll be ready. The night of the gala arrived. I've never seen so much fake gold in one room. Legacy Living was spelled out in giant, glittering letters above the stage. The music was terrible, some kind of generic inspirational techno beat. And the champagne, I noted with a grim smile, was the cheapest sparkling wine they sell at the grocery store, served in plastic flutes. Russ and Brenda, however, looked like they were attending the Oscars. Russ was in a rented tuxedo that was just a little too tight, pulling at the collar, his face shiny with sweat and excitement. Brenda was poured into a glittering, backless red dress that left nothing to the imagination. They were the king and queen of this trash heap. I wore a simple, sleeveless black dress. My boring Lori uniform, just a little nicer. I had my hair in a simple bun. I wanted to be invisible. I wanted to be the background. I held a small black purse. Inside, my hand was wrapped around the remote trigger. The room was full. Russ, I had to give him credit, was a good salesman. He had managed to sell about 100 tickets. Local business owners, dentists, real estate agents, and a lot of Brenda's influencer friends. They were all there, eating mediocre shrimp puffs, ready to be scammed, ready to invest in a legacy. Russ and Brenda finally took the stage to a round of scattered, polite applause. Thank you. Thank you. Russ beamed, grabbing the microphone, causing a burst of feedback. Welcome to the future. Welcome to Legacy Living. He went on for 10 minutes. It was a river of buzzwords he'd learned from a bad business seminar. Synergy. Proactive. Lifestyle architecture. Building your legacy. It was complete and utter nonsense, but he said it with so much passion, so much fake sincerity, people were actually nodding along. Brenda took over, her voice breathy, talking about living your truth and manifesting your destiny and our curated brand journey. It was all I could do not to throw up. Then, Russ's voice dropped, becoming sincere. He put his arm around Brenda. But, we couldn't have done this alone, he said, scanning the crowd. There is one person, one rock, who has been our foundation. The person who believed in us when no one else would. My wife, Lorraine. All eyes turned to me. I could feel the heat. A spotlight found me at my table in the back. Babe, Russ said, his voice thick with fake emotion. Please, come up here. Let everyone see the woman who made this all possible. I walked toward the stage, my legs feeling like cement. The applause was polite. I kept my head down, playing the part of the shy, supportive, simple wife. I stepped up onto the stage. Russ put his arm around my waist, pulling me close. I could smell the beer on his breath, and Brenda's perfume. Brenda stood on his other side, beaming, tears in her eyes. The three of us, the happy, modern family. This woman, Russ said, raising his glass to me, is the definition of loyalty. The definition of support. Our partner. Our rock. And then, he leaned in, as if to kiss my temple. He shielded his mouth from the audience and whispered, his voice a hot, venomous hiss, just for me to hear. Thank you for your stupidity. This is our new beginning. You can go sit down now. That was it. That was the final nail. The last flicker of doubt, the last shred of mercy in my heart, vanished. He turned back to the crowd, his arms still around me, holding me in place. And now, a short video to show you what legacy living is really all about. He and Brenda turned, smiling proudly, to face the giant screen. The lights in the ballroom dimmed. I stood there, trapped between them. And I pressed the button. For the first 5 seconds, the video was exactly what they expected. The tacky Legacy Living logo, spinning in cheap 3D, with more of that awful techno music. Russ and Brenda were smiling, nodding at the screen, nudging each other. Then, a hard static cut. The music stopped. The screen went black. A new sound filled the ballroom. A recording. My voice. Quiet, shaking. Russ, that was our anniversary. With my sister? Russ's smile froze. His hand on my waist tightened like a vice. Then, his voice, loud and clear, booming through the ballroom speaker system, yeah, your sister. And you know what, Lori? I'm glad you know. I'm sick of hiding. A collective, sharp gasp went through the crowd. Russ whipped his head toward the AV booth, his face turning a deep, blotchy red. Brenda's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with terror. The screen lit up again. This time, with text messages. Brenda, she's so boring. Does she ever shut up about those stupid kids on her bus? Is she gone yet? Russ, just keep her happy. We need her 401k. Then we're free. Just play along, baby. More pictures. Them, in my house, on my sofa. Them, in my bed, tangled in the sheets I had bought. Them, toasting champagne, wearing the watch I bought him. Brenda's face crumpled. Russ, she whispered, tugging on his arm, her voice frantic. Russ, make it stop. Make it stop. But it didn't stop. The screen cut to the exit strategy folder. The one-way tickets to Costa Rica, with their names, plain as day. Then, the final, devastating blow. The betrayal within the betrayal. The screen showed Russ's secret email to the Cayman Islands Bank. The request for sole signatory status. The plan to cut Brenda out. Brenda looked at the screen. She looked at Russ. The look on her face wasn't just horror. It was a new, deeper betrayal. She finally understood. He was playing her, too. Russ, she whimpered, her voice cracking. What is that? The audio kicked back in. The grand finale. Russ's voice, booming through the room, filled with pure, unadulterated contempt. Stuck behind the wheel of some stupid bus smelling like disinfectant all day. The video ended. The screen went black. The lights in the ballroom slowly, brutally, came up, revealing 100 faces frozen in shock, disgust, and pity. And there we were, the three of us, trapped on stage in the spotlight. Russ, beet red and sputtering. Brenda, a mask of tears and ruined makeup. And me. That silence, it was the loudest sound I had ever heard. And in that moment, I knew I was free. If you are still listening to this, please, help me out and like this video, and comment with the number 1 down below. It lets me know that you're wonderful, and that you're here with me on this journey. Your support is a bigger encouragement than you know. Please comment with the number 1 so I can see you, and now, let me tell you what happened next. The silence lasted for about 3 seconds. It felt like an eternity. Then, chaos. A man in the front row, a local dentist I recognized, stood up. "Thief," he yelled, pointing a chubby finger at Russ. "You took a $5,000 deposit from me. You fraud." A woman in a sequin dress shrieked, "This whole thing is a fraud. I want my money back." Brenda just collapsed. A full-on, dramatic, red dress crumpling to the floor faint. Or maybe it was real. At that point, I honestly didn't care. Russ, in a blind panic, grabbed the microphone. "It's fake. It's all fake. That's not me. It's special effects. She faked all of it. She's crazy." But the damage was done. People were swarming the stage, not to congratulate, but to condemn. "Where's my money? You scumbag. I want my deposit back." Hotel security started pushing through the crowd, trying to get to the stage. I didn't stay to watch the rest. I didn't need to. I turned, walked to the side stairs of the stage, and stepped down. I moved through the chaos, invisible again, but in a different way. I was no longer the doormat. I was the ghost. As I reached the grand lobby, the shouting fading behind me, a woman's voice cut through the noise. That was the single gutsiest, most cold-blooded, and frankly, brilliant thing I have ever seen. I turned. It was a woman in her late 60s, impeccably dressed in a sharp navy blue suit, with a shock of silver hair and the sharpest, most intelligent eyes I'd ever seen. I'd seen her come in. She was the keynote speaker for a banking conference in the adjoining ballroom. She must have been drawn by the shouting. "Excuse me?" I said. She held out her hand. It was a firm, no-nonsense grip. "Margaret Bishop, CEO of Bishop Capital." I shook her hand. "Lorraine Morgan." "I know," she said with a dry smile. "You, my dear, look like you could use a very expensive drink. But something tells me you'd rather have a job. You have a strategic mind. I can spot one a mile away." She pulled a heavy, cream-colored card from her suit pocket. It just had her name and a private number. "My assistant will call you. We're having lunch." She didn't wait for an answer. She just nodded, turned on her heel, and walked away. I looked at the card. Margaret Bishop, CEO. I walked out of the Oakhurst Hotel, took my first deep breath of clean, cold night air, and for the first time in 20 years, I smiled. A real, genuine smile. The call from Russ's lawyer came 2 days later. Russ, it turned out, had scraped together enough money from God knows where to hire a lawyer for a consultation. We met at a neutral location, the main conference room of my new lawyer, Judith Hayes. I'd found Judith through Frank. Her nickname in the legal community was the Surgeon. She was known for being precise, expensive, and leaving no survivors. Russ and his lawyer, a slick, cheap-suited guy named Jerry, walked in with a lot of bluster. My client is the victim here, Ms. Hayes, Jerry started, puffing out his chest before he was even fully seated. His reputation has been irreparably damaged. His life's work, his legacy, destroyed by your client's malicious performance. It's slander. It's defamation. Judith, a sharp woman in her 50s with steel gray hair, just smiled. She let him talk for 10 solid minutes. He used words like emotional distress, alienation of affection, and targeted harassment. He finished by demanding that all marital assets be frozen, and that Russ was entitled to 50%, plus damages, plus spousal support, given that my client had just cost him his entire livelihood. When he was finally done, Judith steepled her fingers. Defamation, counsel? She asked, her voice soft and pleasant. My understanding is that defamation requires the statements to be false. Everything shown at that party was factual, and we have the digital receipts, the server logs, and the original, unedited audio files. Care to see them? Jerry's smile faltered. As for alienation of affection, Judith continued, that affection was alienated long ago, by your client, with mine's own sister. At a hotel. On their 10th wedding anniversary. We have the receipts for that, too. The signature romance package. A nice touch, don't you think? Russ went pale. And as for emotional distress, Judith said, her voice dropping a fraction, I am very, very excited to bring a countersuit for the distress my client experienced upon discovering her husband and sister were planning to defraud her of her life savings and flee the country. Russ shot up from his chair. That's a lie. It was a business plan. Is it? Judith slid a thick, spiral-bound folder across the table. That's a copy of your application for an offshore account in the Caymans. Sole signatory. And the one-way ticket to Costa Rica. That's wire fraud, Mr. Morgan. And using my client's identity to open credit cards you maxed out? That's identity theft. Both are federal felony charges. I believe the U.S. Attorney's Office would be very interested in this. Russ's face went from white to a sickly green. Jerry, the lawyer, looked like he'd been slapped. Judith slid a second, much thinner folder across the table. Just 2 pages. Or, she said, your client can sign this. It's a simple, no-fault divorce agreement. He waives all claims to all marital property, including the house, which my client owns outright. He waives all rights to alimony, past, present, and future. He gets his clothes, his 10-year-old car, and he walks away a free man. He has 5 minutes to decide before I make a call. Russ looked at his lawyer, his eyes wide with panic. Jerry was staring at the thick folder, the one with wire fraud written on the tab. Jerry read the 2-page agreement. His eyes were wide. He looked at Judith. He looked at me. He pushed the folder and a pen toward Russ. Sign it, Russ. Just sign the damn thing. The divorce was final in 60 days. I spent those 2 months cleaning. I sold the house. I couldn't stand to be in it another day. I hired one of those junk removal companies to come in, pack up all of Russ's things, and put them in a storage unit I paid for 1 month. I told them to throw everything else away. The sofa he'd slept on. The table he'd conspired at. The bed he'd shared with my sister. All of it. I walked out of that house with my old army footlocker, my new laptop, and a small box of photographs of the kids on my bus. That was it. I agreed to meet Brenda one last time. She chose a Denny's off the highway. It was a far cry from the legacy living lifestyle she'd been planning. She looked small. Her flashy clothes were gone, replaced by a worn-out gray sweatshirt. Her salon blonde hair was grown out, the dark roots showing. She wasn't wearing any makeup. She just looked tired. Hey, Lori, she whispered, not meeting my eyes. She was stirring a cup of coffee. Brenda, I said. I didn't sit down. He left, she said, staring into her cup. The day after the party. Took what little money was left in the legacy account and just disappeared. His phone is disconnected. I'm being evicted. I'm not surprised, I said. He was using me, Lori. She started to cry, big, heaving sobs that made the man in the next booth look over. He promised me, he said we were a team. He said I was better than you. That I was ambitious. That I was alive. And you believed him, I said. It wasn't a question. I was always so jealous of you, she sobbed. Even when you were just the boring bus driver. You always had something. You were always so stable. So strong. You always knew what you were doing. I wanted what you had. I looked at my little sister, the woman who had shared my childhood and then stuck a knife in my back for a man who was using them both. I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't feel hatred. I didn't even feel pity. I just felt nothing. The garden was truly dead. The soil was salted. He used us both, Brenda, I said, my voice quiet. The difference is, I knew who I was. You never did. You were so busy trying to be someone else, you let him turn you into a monster. And you let me down. I took a $10 bill from my wallet and put it on the table. It covered her coffee and then some. Goodbye, Brenda, I said. I walked out of the Denny's, the smell of old coffee and regret following me. I got in my car, and I drove away. I never saw her again. The next Monday, I called Margaret Bishop's assistant. Our lunch was at a private club downtown. The kind of place with dark wood, old paintings, and waiters who never wrote anything down. So, Lorraine, Margaret said after we ordered. Your friend Frank told me a bit more about you. Military intelligence. A self-made portfolio of over $4 million, which you've now successfully protected. And you kept it all quiet while driving a school bus for 15 years. You, my dear, are a fascinating woman. I just wanted a quiet life, I said. Nothing wrong with that, she nodded, taking a sip of water. But quiet doesn't suit you. Not really. That stunt at the hotel, that wasn't quiet. That was a hostile takeover. I have a spot for you in my risk assessment division. It's a senior analyst position. 6 figures. It's yours if you want it. I looked at this powerful woman, the kind of person I'd never imagined I'd even meet. She was offering me a lifeline. A promotion. A new, respectable career. I took a deep breath. Margaret. I appreciate the offer. I really do. It's more than generous. But I'm not looking for a job. Her eyebrows shot up, the first sign of surprise I'd seen from her. I'm looking for a partner, I said. I slid a thin, leather-bound folder across the table. It wasn't a resume. It was a business plan. It's called the Phoenix Fund, I said. It's a small venture capital fund. But we don't invest in tech startups run by 20-year-olds from Stanford. We invest in women. Women over 40. Women who, like me, have been overlooked, underestimated, or had to start their entire lives over. I laid out the numbers. The market research. The untapped potential of women with decades of life experience, women who were seen as just moms, or teachers, or bus drivers. Margaret was silent. She read the entire proposal, page by page. It took her 20 minutes. I just sat there, sipped my water, and waited. I had faced down Russ, I could face this. Finally, she closed the folder. She looked at me, a long, appraising look. You don't just want my money, she said. You want me. My connections. My infrastructure. I want your wisdom, Margaret, I said. I have the analytics. You have the experience. Together, we can build something that lasts. She broke into a wide, brilliant smile. I'll be your first investor. And your first board member. But on one condition. What's that? We start tomorrow. And your friend Frank is your head of security and IT. I don't like my investments being unprotected. It's been a year since that night. My life at 4:30 a.m. looks different now. I still wake up, but not to an alarm. I wake up because I'm excited. I still have coffee, but I drink it on the balcony of my new condo, overlooking the city skyline as it starts to glow. The Phoenix Fund is real. It's thriving. We've funded 6 businesses so far. A bakery run by a woman who lost her pension in a bad divorce. A logistics company founded by a female veteran. A software firm started by a mom who'd been out of the workforce for 15 years. Frank is our COO. He's grumpy, he drinks too much coffee, and he's the most loyal friend I've ever had. He's my rock. A real one. I was driving to our first annual shareholders meeting this morning. I was in my new car, a simple, elegant Tesla. Not flashy. Just efficient. I stopped at a red light. And right next to me, a big, yellow school bus pulled up. The doors hissed open. The little stop sign folded out. I watched as a young mom, struggling with a stroller and another toddler, helped her son get on the bus. The bus driver, a woman about my age, with kind eyes and a patient smile, leaned out. She said something to the little boy that made him laugh. She gave the mom a reassuring nod. She looked over at me, sitting in my fancy car. We made eye contact. And we just nodded. A simple nod. A sign of mutual respect. From one driver to another. The light turned green. My phone buzzed. It was a text from the woman who started the bakery. It was just a picture of her storefront, with a line of customers stretching around the block. The text just said, "Thank you, Lori. You gave me a second chance." I smiled. Not the cold smile of revenge. Not the sad smile of the past. A real one. I put the car in gear and drove forward. I didn't look back. Thank you for listening to my story. It's been a lot. And I'm just so grateful to be where I am now. If you've ever felt overlooked or taken for granted, I hope you know that your story isn't over. It's just waiting for you to write the next chapter. If this resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you'd like this video and maybe share it with someone who needs to hear it. And please, leave a comment. I read them all. What would you have done? Thanks for being here. I'll see you next time. And so, this story leaves us with a profound reminder: life's greatest strength often lies in the quiet resilience we carry within ourselves. Lori's journey teaches us that even in the face of betrayal, heartbreak, and injustice, we hold the power to reclaim our narrative and rise stronger than ever. It's not about the titles we wear, the roles we play, or the opinions of others. It's about knowing our worth, standing firm in our truth, and refusing to let anyone diminish the value we bring to the world. This story also reminds us that adversity, while painful, can be a catalyst for transformation. Lori didn't just survive, she thrived. She turned her pain into purpose, her betrayal into wisdom, and her setbacks into stepping stones for a brighter future. Her courage to confront her challenges head-on and rebuild her life is an inspiring testament to the strength of the human spirit. What about you? What lessons did you take away from this story? Share your thoughts below or simply comment good if you found this reflection meaningful. Let us continue to inspire one another to rise above and write the next chapter of our lives with courage and hope.